What I wanted to do was try and write a film about a woman, an ordinary woman, and how an ordinary woman might take revenge in the real world. And that's very rarely reaching for a gun. It's sort of more weird and sort of twisted than that. So I guess Promising Young Woman is a sort of twisted female revenge comedy thriller. I think the tone of the movie, I hope, is a kind of horrifyingly dark comedy, and a thriller, but tonally, certainly it does sit on a kind of on a razor's edge, I think, of horrendous and hilarious, which is kind of the space that I like to be in. I like that response when people kind of laugh and then gasp because they feel bad for laughing. That's my kind of favourite place to be. I wasn't really interested in making a film that examined terrible crimes and terrible acts of violence and the people that commit those things. I'm much more interested in our culture and how, and the kind of things that when I was at university 10 years ago were completely normal, that now seem horrendous. And really it's always kind of looking at my own life, the lives of my friends and the women I know, the men I know, and thinking how are we all part of this kind of awful knot that we need to kind of unpick. I wanted it to be really fun and interesting and compelling, and that the thriller element really felt real. And so if it was never going to work if Cassie, you know, our lead, was going around kind of telling people off for doing the wrong thing. It's much more interesting that the people that she visits, people who maybe had a hand in the thing that happened in the past, it's much more interesting if they've really got a good point. So I had to be really, really honest and really careful about making sure that every single person really had a convincing argument, because otherwise it just seems too easy. The whole point of this movie is that it was supposed to feel like a kind of candy shop, or going on a date with someone that you just hit it off with and you were like falling head over heels at first sight, and then you get back to their apartment and you realise the door's locked and it's too late. That's kind of what I want the feeling of this film to be for the audience. Like, come in, it's really nice, you're going to be fine. And then they're not. And, you know, it is a kind of dark fairy tale, so I think it was important that it had that kind of heightened feeling. Promising Young Woman is about a promising young woman, Cassie, played by Carey Mulligan, who, for reasons unknown to us, dropped out of med school and is now living with her parents, aged 30, in a kind of weird stasis. And every night she goes to nightclubs and bars and sort of picks up men for her own sort of nefarious purposes. But the thing that happens that sort of interrupts this cycle is she falls in love. And it's it's kind of what she chooses, whether she'll choose the romantic comedy or the bloodbath. The thing about Cara is she's so deeply talented in a kind of bone marrow deep way. And she was always the person I really wanted for Cassie, and so the fact that she's playing her is really a dream come true. She's incredibly intelligent and perceptive, and incredibly diligent also. And so I think really the first time we met, it was, I mean, a foregone conclusion. She said, I remember what she said because it was so kind of, it was so indicative of the kind of person and actress she is. She said, I don't know how to do this, so I have to do it. And she's so up for being challenged. The thing about Ryan is he's just a completely straightforward, decent, funny person, and I think that his sort of normality and charm and the kind of life that he offers Cassie is so beguiling. And obviously we needed somebody really, really deeply charming and charismatic to play Ryan. And so when Bo Burnham came in and read with Carey, it was just like completely a no-brainer. He's so brilliant and the chemistry that they have is so good. And so it really does become difficult for her because not only does Ryan, not only is he sort of taking her away from her journey or her mission, let's say, but he was at med school with her, and so he knows some of the people in her life that she'd rather forget, and so he's sort of a blessing and a curse. The thing that I would say about all of the male characters in this film is none of them are bad people. And in fact, nobody in this film is a bad person. It's really important and was really important to me that men and women in this film were all just part of a culture that grew up with a sort of slightly dodgy attitude to sex and the way that sex was achieved, let's say. But really crucially, there is no person in this film, except for maybe one or two, who isn't doing really something that lots of people have done all the time, which has been culturally and socially acceptable for years and years and years. The thing that's so important to me about this film is just asking, the sort of fundamental question of this film is, if this thing is fine, why do we all feel so weird about it? This film, I hope, as well as just being pleasurable, will be something that people will leave the movie theatre and having had enjoyed it, but also wanting to kind of analyse it. And, I think certainly when the script was going out, people just felt very differently about the ending. They felt very differently about her mission. They felt very differently about the whole thing. And that's really good. You want people to feel like a bit of tension after a film like this. I think the thing about a theatrical experience is being aware of other people in the theatre and the atmosphere around you is so enhancing and it adds so much to the experience.
夜ごとキャシーはバーで酔ったふりをする。
What are you doing? It's okay. You're silent.
I said, what are you doing?
善と有望だった過去に何があったのか。
What are you gonna do?
It's a day of reckoning for everyone.
プロミシングヤングウーマン。